Good afternoon and welcome to this month's monthly webinar. My name is Michael Kramer. I am the Calibration and Inspection Program Manager, and I am presenting to you today on behalf of Perry Johnson Laboratory Accreditation. Today's topic is going to be use of the accreditation symbol and references to accreditation. As always, this webinar is being recorded. At the conclusion, it should be available later on today at our website. If perhaps a colleague may have missed it, or you want to go back and re-listen to it, go to our website, www.pjlabs.com. We have a tab there just for recorded webinars. Like I said, this one will be available probably at the end of today, but there's a wealth of past webinars up there. So feel free to visit the website, go to the webinars, and if there's a particular topic of interest, chances are relating to 17025 and accreditation that we've covered it over the last few years. The duration of this webinar should be no more than an hour. In your box, you should have a box in front of you. If any questions that you would like answered, feel free to type them in. I won't see the questions until the conclusion of the webinar. As always, please keep your questions related to today's topic, which is, once again, use of accreditation symbols and reference to accreditation. So Perry Johnson Laboratory Accreditation, PJLA, often referred to. We are an MRA, Mutual Recognition Agreement signatory of the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, or better known as ILAC, and also of the Asia Pacific Accreditation Cooperation, also known as APAC. So at PJLA, we are actually under the APAC as far as a region, and APAC is a recognized regional cooperation by the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, ILAC. As a signatory, PJLA is required to adhere to the rules of both ILAC and APAC. Due to this requirements, organizations that are accredited or in the process of being accredited shall adhere to all policies of PJLA, including our accreditation symbol procedure, which is SOP3. So you folks that are accredited with us, or perhaps are in the loops, you're aware of the PL documents that we have in place. We have policies in PL1, proficiency testing, PL2, traceability, PL3, measurement uncertainty, and PL4, scopes of accreditation. These are all stem from ILAC policy. So they solidify the requirements in 17025 P documents or policies, hence PL 1234. There's policies. When we accredit labs, we don't even, we just not accredit them to 17025, 17020, or whatever you happen to be under. We also accredit to our policies, and this includes what we're going to discuss today, SOP3, which is the accreditation symbol procedure. So ILAC, internationally recognized. ILAC is a global association for the accreditation of laboratories, inspection bodies, proficiency testing providers, reference materials, with memberships consisting of accreditation bodies and stakeholder organizations throughout the world. So ILAC is a representative organization that involved with things such as development of accreditation practices and procedures, the promotion of accreditation as a trade facilitation tool, i.e. breaking down the barriers to trade, that the ILAC symbol is internationally recognized and accepted, supporting the provision of local and national services, the assistance of developing accreditation systems, and the recognition of competent testing, including medical and calibration lab inspection bodies, proficiency testing providers, and reference materials producers around the world. And these are all areas that we accredit organizations to under our umbrella of Perry Johnson Laboratory on Accreditation as a ILAC MRA signatory. So as I mentioned before, ILAC is internationally recognized, that symbol. ILAC facilitates trade and supports regulators by operating a worldwide mutual recognition agreement. The ILAC arrangements among accreditation bodies, which we fall under at PJLA. Accreditation bodies, we have to operate under a standard, and we operate to what's presented to you on the screen there, which is ISO 17011. That was also recently revised in 2017, and we are assessed to that standard by ILAC. So they come and they assess us to those standards. Many of the same things that you folks are adhering to with your 17025 accreditation, things like corrective action, management review, internal auditing. We have those requirements embedded in 17011. Like, we go out and witness you folks do what you do best, your testing and calibrations that are under your scope of accreditation. They will come out and witness us, do assessments, and they will evaluate us against the requirements of 17011, and also assure that we're adhering to their policies, which the use of accreditation symbols and references to accreditation is one of those policies, which is depicted for you on the screen there. So 17011, clause 4.3 requires accreditation bodies to have policies govern the use of its accreditation symbols and claims of accreditation status by its accreditation organization. ILAC P8, hence P for policy, provides supplementary requirements for the use of accreditation symbols and for claims of accreditation status by accredited organizations in the context of the ILAC Mutual Recognition Agreement. So hence we have SOP 3, which is written in harmony with those requirements specified in both 17011 and also ILAC P8. That's our accreditation symbol procedure. Thought I'll mention here that SOP3 is available on our website under resources, documents, I believe. All of our PL policies are there, and various SOPs, SOP 3 being the accreditation symbol procedure. If you're accredited with us or in the realm of being in the loop of being accredited, that's a document that you would need to have, and you would need to adhere to these requirements that we're going over today. So ILAC P8 aims to ensure the uniform approach to the use of accreditation symbol and for the manners in which an accreditation organization may refer to as accreditation and also make claims to the ILAC MRA. Also want to mention here, and we'll touch on this a tad bit later in the presentation, that we also incorporate in SOP3 ILAC as a rules document, R7, which is the rules for the use of the ILAC mark, ILAC MRA mark. And that's the internationally recognized symbol that's presented there. So those folks that are accredited with us, many of our organizations choose to not only utilize the PJLA symbol, but also the ILAC symbol. It's not something you can just decide on your own to do. There are some requirements that need to be met, which we'll touch on here in a bit. So in accordance with the requirements of 17011, PJLA offers accreditation symbols to make others aware of accreditations by means of various forms of publicity. The use of the accreditation symbol is voluntary. We like for you to use them. We like for you to use our symbol, of course. However, it's not required. However, when accredited organizations intend to issue an accredited or will refer to an endorse report, which may reference your accreditation, to their customers, they shall include the appropriate reference to their accreditation using the PJLA accreditation symbol or language that is described in our SOP3. Any misuse of the PJLA accreditation symbol or ILAC mark or any other governed body as mentioned in SOP3 is treated very seriously and handled through PJLA's corrective action process. So we have on occasion had things brought to our attention from outside sources that we need to address, which would be violations of what's written in SOP3, where we would have to address it with our accredited lab and have appropriate corrective actions taken. Something we don't like to do. Hopefully this webinar would enlighten folks and create awareness of these requirements. So as part of an assessment, the PJLA assessor examines the use of accreditation symbols and accreditation language as parts of all assessments. And here in a little bit, we'll take a look at what it can be used on and what it can't be used on. The accreditation symbol or references to accreditation shall be included on all reports where an accredited or endorsed report is requested by the customer of the organization. Symbol or references to accreditation shall be associated with the services covered in the scope of accreditation and not with any activities in which the accredited organization may be involved. So what we're saying there is when we accredit an organization, of course, you have a accreditation scope. Apologize, it's kind of small, but I think that's excerpts out of a pipette calibration lab there. So in this case, this organization can feel free to use, if this is their entire scope, anything that falls within those calibration disciplines and within those ranges and in accordance with the CMC that's referenced there. If, for example, there are other things that the lab does, and I was on the other side of the table for quite a few years and was accredited by different organizations, and we had things on our scope that we was under our accreditations. However, there were things that we did that we did not support by having them accredited. In that case, if that involves perhaps your situation there, if that's not on your scope, it's something that you cannot associate the accreditation with. So you cannot perhaps do a report on this pipette organization cannot do a report, say, on a laboratory balance if that's not part of their scope of accreditation. So do's and don'ts. We're going to look at the do's, and this comes right out of SOP3. Accreditation symbols or language may be used in the following. We call these do's. It can be used in letterhead, business cards, fax cover sheets, envelopes, brochure, pop-up banners. If you go to trade shows and presenting your testing or calibration organization, feel free to display the PJLA logo symbol as we're discussing today. Posters, PowerPoint presentations, press releases, advertisements. I would say these next two are where I see them used most often on the website. And probably the most often utilization of PJLA symbol, ILAC mark is on reports or certificates that's issued to the customers. Can also be used on emails and compliment slips. So we're going to look at the don'ts, and these are things that are specified in SOP 3, legal documents. Any documents on sites accredited that's not accredited by PJLA. So if you have a few sites within your organization that are doing testing and not all of them are accredited, the symbol and references to accreditation can only be directed at those sites that are. Subcontractor certificates or documentations. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit for those folks that subcontracts and usage of the symbol, but you cannot basically take your symbol and put it on the subcontractor's certificate. Any application of PJLA that are not yet, any applicants, I'm sorry, that are not yet accredited. In other words, don't jump the gun. I have to go through your assessment. We have a process we go through. So once your assessment package is closed and it's gone through our internal review and approval procedure, we will draft up a type scope and have you review it, and we will make it official then, but not before then. On products or items in which the CAB, that's the accredited organization, you folks that are accredited with us, has tested, calibrated, and inspected, except on calibration labels, which we'll touch on here in a little bit. So we don't want our symbol on the products that you're testing or calibrating. It's sort of maybe misinterpreted that we're endorsing the particular items. On reports, and I bolded this one because this is I would say in writing nonconformance against SOP 3, I say we do assess to these requirements. This is the most common one that we would find a violation. Not often, but I would say this would top the list here. On report certificates or enclosed letters of results for which the organization scope is not accredited by PJLA. So sort of like that example I gave with the place that was accredited just to do pipettes. They also do balances not on their scope. They cannot produce reports for the balance where they mention accreditation or use the symbol. Testing, including medical labs, calibration, reference materials, material productions, inspection, proficiency testing, services, or field sampling and measurement outside the scope of accreditation included on any form of authorized material shall be clearly identified as the laboratory is not accredited for test and or calibrations mark. This could be an instant where perhaps you're doing testing and you may have a couple different results on that testing report, where perhaps 3 of the 4 tests are covered on your scope of accreditation. You can include them all in the on that report, for example. However, you have to sort of highlight or indicate that one test as not being something that is covered under your scope of accreditation. All right, subcontracting. And this is, and sometimes I go into a facility and I would ask if they do subcontracting. And they would say, yes, well, sometimes we will send test weights off to another lab. Well, in that case, what I'm trying to present is they're not accredited to do test weights. They're sort of acting as a middleman, where they have an agreement with the customer. Hey, we'll send all these things in that you can test, and the things that you can't test, you'll send out to another organization that perhaps can test or calibrate it. So these are things that you are accredited for, where you can subcontract and use the PJLA logo, symbol. So this is work for you're accredited to another organization. The organization may include the results on its accredited endorsed reports with the appropriate accreditation symbol, accreditation reference. However, it needs to be ensured that all requirements of the ISO accredited standards are met for this service and that the external service provider is accredited for the activities being performed. So hence, once again, this is things that are under your accreditation. there are other requirements about subcontracting, which is not covered under SOP 3. One, the requirements is you have to let the 2017 standard. Basically, you have to inform your client before you subcontract. And then basically, we require them to be accredited. Of course, to be accredited for the same thing that you are, that for whatever, it could be an unforeseen circumstance. Perhaps you had an equipment breakdown, or a key employee perhaps gotten ill, something like that. That may not be part of your normal regiment, but perhaps for unforeseen circumstances, you may have to subcontract. What you can do, and you can utilize the logo just as long as they meet the requirements that we're specifying here. You would take the customer's data, you can use it on your report, their data, use the PJLA logo and accreditation language as specified in SOP 3. Calibration labels. Don't see it too often. Once in a while. I'm a calibration program manager, so I mostly assess calibration organizations. We do have requirements for using the logo on calibration labels. These are the labels where, perhaps you have give you an example, a pH meter that you send off to the calibration lab, and they put that little sticker on there stating when it was due, when it was calibrated, and when you desire for the due date, then it specifies the calibration status of the instrument. So that's what we're referring to here. So if for whatever reason the calibration lab would like to use the PJLA logo, we'd love for them to do so. But it's totally voluntary. If they do, though, they have to adhere to these requirements. The calibration label needs to include some other things here. It needs to include the name of the accredited calibration organization or its accreditation number. That accreditation number is a unique accreditation number assigned to the individual accredited organization. The equipment identification. So you have to have unique identifiers for your equipment. That unique identifier would need to be on there. Date of the current calibration. So in other words, the date of test or date of calibration that when it was performed. And you have to be able to cross-reference to the calibration certificate issued in respect to the calibration. So in other words, one of the requirements is you have to have a unique identifier. I'm talking about requirements for reporting the results now, section 7A. So perhaps you have a certificate number. So this is stating if you're using the logo, these things have to be mentioned, and you also have to mention that certificate number that's unique to that particular calibration. Accreditation symbols shall only be used on calibration labels that belong to equipment that has been calibrated using the methods covered by the scopes of accreditation. Similar requirements also apply to, you may have those folks that are 17020 inspection or reference material producers. We do address those in SOP 3 symbols. The requirements for those types of organizations are very similar to calibration labels. All right, taken right out of SOP 3, the authorized symbol or a reference to accreditation shall be identified with a unique accreditation number assigned by PJLA to the accredited organization. PJLA prefers accredited organizations to include the accreditation number as shown below. If the organizations desire to include the accreditation number in a different area, then they shall ensure that it is placed within close proximity of the accreditation symbol. In other words, we definitely would want to see it on the same page, and kind of open to a little interpretation there, that close proximity. Most of the time I see them depicted just like depicted here, which this comes right out of a screenshot from SOP 3. You be provided a symbol. Say the top left one is a accredited calibration lab. And bear in mind, it's the accreditation number. We also offer certificate numbers. There's 2 numbers on the your scope of accreditation, the certificate. the accreditation number is used. I once in a while come across an organization using the certificate number. That is subjected to change. The accreditation number is a unique number that would be assigned to you. So you depict it just as presented there ideally. We have calibration, testing, we have inspection there, medical testing, and reference material. These are all areas that we accredit to. So at no time does PJLA have the authority to grant permission for the utilizations of other organizations, ISO, IEC, or APLAC logos to be displayed on certificates, reports, calibration labels, or other documents, with the exception of those outlined in SOP 3. So one of these is ISO 9001. So you may have ISO 9001 certification. You cannot put that on your report, and it's probably also specified by your register that you cannot put them on testing and calibration reports. It's not an area that they assess. They assess the quality system. You have a quality system that complies with that standard. It does not go into the technical competencies of 17025 in regards to say testing and calibration. So you cannot put that logo on there. And this is specified right in SOP 3. A laboratory accredited to 17025 may mention that it operates a quality management system on its reports and certificates using the following statement. This laboratory is accredited in accordance with recognized international standard, i.e. ISO, IEC 17025. This accreditation demonstrates technical competence for the defined scope and operation of the laboratory quality system, referred to Joint ISO, ILAC, IAF communique dated April 2017. That's an example that could be used if you want to sort of highlight your quality management system that you have in place with your testing reports, but you just cannot use the logo. That organization did not assess your testing or calibration technical competencies. Okay, in the case, the CAB, CAB is the accredited organization. That's you folks that are accredited with us, decides not to utilize the accreditation symbol and chooses to reference their accreditation on calibration, including medical, RMP, inspection, proficiency testing. They shall ensure the following information is included. So what this is saying, if you are producing a report and perhaps you're, sometimes I hear sometimes space is limited. You don't want this symbol on there, but you want to reference your accreditation and you want the report to be considered an accredited, something that comes under your scope, an endorse type report. So basically you'll see here just about everything's included with the symbol, but without the symbol. So if you want to reference the standard, you have to reference the whole shoot and match, ISO, IEC 17025, and of course with the year. Currently that's 2017. There's some of our other standards, 17020 for inspection, 17034 for reference materials, and 15189 for medical labs. You have to reference the whole standard. You reference the accrediting organization to PJLA. You have to reference the unique accreditation number, and then the accreditation field, your calibration testing lab, or so forth as specified there. So in other words, you can put accredited to ISO IEC 17025 2017 PJLA accreditation number 12345, for example, and you have to specify what area it is, calibration testing. So just referencing accreditation in general, it is called accreditation. It's not certification or registration. It's called accreditation. So acceptable ways to present it would be, again, it's the whole shoot and match. When I say that, the whole entire standard and the current revision date, ISO IEC 17025 2017. There's examples of some of our other, like I said, medical inspection reference material. Unacceptable. There's some examples that the way you should not reference accreditation. Like I said, it's not certification, it's not registered, it's accreditation. We accredit labs under 17025. All right. We're gonna be mentioned. We also allow usage of the ILAC mark, and we had that R7 rules number 7 that we incorporate into SOP3. So PJLA allows the use of the ILAC MRA mark in combination with the PJLA accreditation symbol to promote international recognition of the ILAC MRA and the accredited services covered by the international agreement. So like I said, ILAC, especially if you're involved in international trade, maybe your customers are doing work for folks internationally, if they're reviewing the report. And the same would apply to me if I'm looking at reports for an organization, say overseas. I may not be familiar with the the accrediting body symbol. PJLA might not be that, may not be as recognizable. Let's say in India or Spain, for example, as it is in the U.S. However, that ILAC with the PJLA logo, symbol. I'm misusing the term there when I say logo is a symbol. Would show that yes, you're accredited through PJLA, who is an ILAC MRA. We follow 17011, follow ILAC policies and rules, and we're assessed by APAC that we are abiding to those accredited those standards. So the joint ILAC MRA mark may only be used under the following conditions. The ILAC combined MRA mark has been signed between PJLA and the accredited CAB, and a draft of this use of the combined mark has been approved. So you have to go through once you're accredited, you can use the PJLA symbol, abide by the SOP3. However, you cannot jump in and use the ILAC mark without adhering to what's specified there. PJLA will send you an agreement you need to read and sign. And you'll see here in a minute that, this is going to be cross-referenced over to the rules R7 that ILAC has in place. And then you would have to show a sample of how you intend to use the ILAC mark. We do maintain, and that's one thing our assessors are looking for. We maintain a list that our assessors have available of everyone who's been approved to use the ILAC mark. So along with assessing the symbol, if we see that the ILAC mark is being used with the symbol, then we need to see that it's been approved and the CAB has jumped through those hoops of highlighted here in number 1, signing the agreement, and number 2, presenting a sample to PJLA. And then you would get a nice little signed statement back from PJLA saying it's been approved. So again, like I mentioned, we incorporate with the use of the ILAC mark, R7, the rules for the use of the ILAC mark, by signing the ILAC R7 F1 agreement for the use of the ILAC mark. ILAC MRA signatories agree to the terms of use set out within our ILAC R7. So we have to sign an agreement ourselves, which we have to specify those things to our CABs or our accredited organizations. Hence, you have to sign that written agreement as number 1 there prior to being approved to use the ILAC mark. So again, in SOP3, we have examples, nice pretty pictures like this, how you can use it. The combined mark should be displayed as indicated in the examples below. These are examples, and additional programs may be available for the use of PJLA combined ILAC marks. PJLA will offer the utilization of any additional marks to accrediting organizations as applicable. So what we specify in, and these come directly, these are written in harmony with R7, the rules. The symbol should be legible and non-distorted, specific about the size there. No smaller than 20 millimeters and maintain similar proportion as the PJLA symbol. The combined mark should be placed horizontally. The combined mark should also display ILAC MRA as they are part of the actual mark. The PJLA symbol and the PJLA mark should be noted, and I think that's a typo there, should be ILAC mark. However, in some cases, PJLA may allow a different format as long as the PJLA symbol and ILAC mark are within close proximity. We're talking about the examples that we showed here. The ILAC mark can be either black and white, and then very specific color things here. Mono color breakdown, 100% black blue process, color breakdown, Pantone color breakdown, or website. PJLA will provide you the artwork if for using our symbol and both the ILAC mark once you're accredited. And once you've been agreed, you sign the agreement and submitted the artwork for PJLA to review beforehand for using the ILAC mark, that is. All right, just want to mention here that we also have Appendix C. If I happen to have anyone listening today that falls under the NILAP program at PJLA, we also have Appendix C that specifies use of that symbol as well. All right, thank you for signing in. So listening to this presentation, I hope it was useful. I go into my question here. Question number one. Hello, Marwa. I just wonder if we can use 2 accreditation logos on one certificate. If you're talking about accreditation, if you're talking about accreditation 17025, I do know one organization, I see a lot of their certificates in calibration. Unfortunately, PJLA is not one of the accrediting bodies, but there are 2 other organizations that they're accredited to under the MRA. They got 2 scopes of accreditation. So if you're talking about accreditation of signatories of 17025, and for whatever reason you have accreditation in 2 organizations, then you can do that. I don't think we addressed that in SOP 3. I've only seen it in this one organization that maintains 17025 by 2 recognized MRAs under the US. Again, if you're referring to certification or registration, then no, you can't do that. If it's accreditation to 17025, then yes. Is there a certificate for attending this webinar? Something that we're talking about, but unfortunately right now we don't have that in place. I'm having help at our headquarters in Michigan. I have a young lady who helps me put these webinars in, and if she can make note, because that's been asked before, that if something that once you finish the webinar, that perhaps you can go to some sort of link to show that you attended the webinar. I know myself as an assessor, especially if folks are doing the internal auditing and perhaps not had any formal training and might be struggling with some of the requirements, I often refer them to the webinars and even the past webinars if there's particular areas. I hope you find them useful. And yeah, unfortunately, the answer to your question at this snapshot, at this point in time, is no. All right, not a whole lot of questions today, so hopefully everybody has a good understanding and got a lot out of today's session. And before we adjourn, I am going to just announce, and it's already on our website, We're going to get right back into specific requirements. I've done this in a long time, this particular areas. Way back, I think, when we first was accrediting to 2017, we looked at the first two areas of the standard, 17025 standards, is impartiality and confidentiality. First two things we looked at. Those folks that are, and we're coming to the end of the line here as far as should be too many folks still in the transition phase, but if you are, you'll notice that these are greatly magnified areas in 2000 ISO 17025 2017 as opposed to the 2005 standard. Anyway, Friday, April 23rd. Hope you can attend, and thank you for attending today, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, wherever you happen to be.